This movie's trash, man. I can't believe it. I had such high hopes for this stupid Fast and Furious movie that I shouldn't have had high hopes for. God, the trailer looks so good. Looks so much like so much fun.
Pick a door.
All right then.
No, that's my door. Pick another door.
What's wrong with you? You know what? You were right. This is your door.
What's the matter? You got a lot of bad guys behind that door?
So Hobbs and Shaw is the latest installment in the long-running Fast and Furious franchise, a franchise that constantly has new movies coming out that always consistently make a ton of money. And I've never seen one. This is the first Fast and Furious movie I've ever seen, and that is the truth.
What's wrong with you?
Now, this is from one of the John Wick directors. You got Chad something or other and David Leitch. And these two directors kind of kicked off this new wave of action movies with the first John Wick. And I have a lot of the same issues with this movie that I do with the latest John Wick movie. And I was honestly considering just re-uploading my John Wick 3 review in place of this video because I have a lot of, literally almost all the same issues with it, save for a few. But here we are, recording this anyway. So let's just get into it. I'm going to start off with the positives. The positives of this movie are very short, so we'll get that over quickly. I like the actors. I like Jason Statham. I like The Rock. I like Vanessa Kirby. I think they have a lot of charisma, and they handle themselves in their roles pretty well. Specifically Jason Statham, I really, really like him. I think he's just charismatic naturally. He could just be on screen, and I like him. And the movie itself looks like they tried to do some interesting things with the camera. When there's like hand-to-hand combat, it definitely seems like there's choreography and talent and stunt work going into it. All the stunt work is very good. The CG mostly is okay. And that's about it. The rest of this movie is almost a complete disaster. It's just a hot mess from literally the first scene. The first scene of the movie stars Vanessa Kirby and Idris Elba, who is the villain, who I also like in this movie. But the MacGuffin of this movie is a virus of some kind. Every action movie has a MacGuffin. You know, Mission Impossible Fallout has the nuclear warhead. Mad Max Fury Road has the prized breeders of Immortan Joe. There's always a MacGuffin that the villain wants and the heroes have to protect. And in this one, it's some kind of virus that will apparently melt your insides. So the first scene of the movie is Vanessa Kirby trying to take the virus and make it safe from Idris Elba, who is on her heels. So instead of just grabbing this tube that has the virus inside of it, she literally just injects it into herself. A virus that can kill you. The first thing that happens is Vanessa Kirby injects a fatal, they literally say 100% fatality rate. And she just injects it into herself. First thing that happens. Instead of just grabbing it. Definitely a smart MI6 agent that you got there.
Access granted. Access denied. Access denied. Access denied.
And it doesn't stop there either. This movie is full of nonsensical decisions, characters that seemingly will turn on a dime from what you would think they would do to make an incredibly stupid or pig-headed decision just to save the plot so that the plot can continue to move forward. There are endless plot devices, and plot devices in the form of two cameos, which is probably my least favorite part of this movie. The two cameos in this movie are Ryan Reynolds, and even worse, Kevin Hart. Ryan Reynolds and Kevin Hart, who show up just to have ridiculous improv scenes and be plot devices.
Luke Hobbs and Shaw.
We've got unfinished business.
But if this isn't bad enough, if the characters making incredibly stupid decisions and numerous plot conveniences or plot devices aren't bad enough, there is an unhealthy amount of exposition in this movie, to the point where it is actually exhausting. I think every character that has any amount of screen time will say exposition. Even the two cameos that are barely in the movie have at least one exposition scene. Kevin Hart shows up on a plane just so that they can call him later and say, thanks for hooking us up with a flight to Samoa. Exposition right there. Great. You got a cameo to just spew exposition. And Vanessa Kirby has most of her dialogue is just exposition. Jason Statham, when he isn't insulting The Rock, is just saying exposition. The Rock, when he isn't insulting Jason Statham, is just saying exposition. There is literally no substance to this movie of any kind. The villain, while maybe intimidating because he keeps referring to himself as Black Superman,
I'm Black Superman.
is not that interesting because A, I haven't seen the other movies, and apparently he's in those, so I don't have that context, so he's not interesting because of that, and he's not interesting because he's some kind of superhuman, and superhumans are not that interesting because they are impervious to death. So, of course, that's not interesting. Which leads me to my next point, in that every main character in this movie is impervious. They are immune to death. There is nothing that can happen to them that will kill them, or even really make a scar or scratch on them. There are many scenes where The Rock and Jason Statham are clobbered, punched, pushed off cliffs, or are strapped to helicopters tumbling off a cliff, and they come away completely unscathed. Now that makes sense for
I'm Black Superman.
but it does not make sense for The Rock or Jason Statham or Vanessa Kirby for that matter, who is in fact in a lot of these scenes. The biggest part of an action movie is stakes. And when you don't got those, you don't got much. I'm sorry to say. If I don't know, or I'm not convinced that these main characters can die, then why should I care? And of course, I do not think that these main characters can die because they need to set up 15 more of these movies, and that's obvious with the cliffhanger ending that it has.
Buckle up, fat boy.
But again, it doesn't end there. The negatives of this movie just continue to pile on top of each other, where one of the biggest and most annoying plot devices come in near the end, because of course Vanessa Kirby was stupid enough to inject a lethal virus into her hand. It needs to be extracted, obviously. So there's an extraction machine that she takes out of a lab with the help of Jason Statham and Dwayne The Rock, but in an event that I'm still not convinced I know fully how it happened, it gets broken inside of a car somehow. And then, because the movie isn't stupid enough, they take this device back home with The Rock to Samoa, where his family is, which is a theme of this movie, families rekindling. The Rock has his family that he hasn't talked to, and Jason Statham has his sister, Vanessa Kirby, that he hasn't talked to in forever. And they both rekindle at the end, and they're family again. So he takes this device to his family, and his brother, Jonah, I believe is his name in the movie, who is a car guy, he is a mechanic, manages to fix this highly technical government-type prototype machinery that is literally meant to extract viruses out of human blood. This person that works on cars fixes this device.
He really is Black Superman.
And there are plenty of little things like that throughout the movie that I don't want to get into because this video would be 20 minutes long if I did, that are equally as stupid. I really hoped going into this movie that it would be just a sort of tongue-in-cheek, maybe even a parody type of action movie where not much was explained and it was just over the top and fun for the sake of being fun. I'm really not asking for all that much when I see an action movie. All I want to see is either A, action movie that is over the top and doesn't make any sense and knows that it doesn't make any sense and plays on that. Or B, an action movie that makes sense and is logical. That's literally all I want. And here, neither of those things really happen. There are moments where it seems like it's tongue-in-cheek, but then there are moments when it seems hyper-serious. There are plenty of action scenes in this movie that feature the over-the-top bombastic action music, and you're supposed to be taking it seriously while buildings are toppling on top of people, and those people are still walking out fine. How am I supposed to take that seriously? But, of course, there are scenes that they are not taking things too seriously, like when there is a chain of cars trying to pull down a helicopter. There are a couple fun moments in that, but then it just ends with The Rock and Jason Statham and Idris Elba punching each other in a scene so reminiscent of the Matrix Reloaded, or not even that, the Matrix Revolutions, that I just couldn't even take it seriously because it felt like a somehow worse version of that, which was already a bad scene. I mean, I don't really know what else to say about this movie other than that you shouldn't watch it. You shouldn't pay for this Don't go see it. It sucks. It doesn't make sense. There's plot devices and plot conveniences galore. There's endless exposition. There's sometimes good but not really good CG, and it constantly feels artificial and shot on a soundstage, which doesn't really do much to help me convince that it's any kind of fun if it looks like it's shot on a soundstage. I'm probably feeling a 3 or 4 out of 10. Just not enjoyable. It's long. It's bloated. It's just bad. It's just bad, dude.